right. Hello and welcome to the Swing Smarter Hitting Training Podcast. This is your host, Joey Myers from hittingperformancelab.com. And today with me is Coach Mark Gonzalez, aka East Bay Mark. And first, I want to welcome you to the show, Mark.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And just want to let everybody know what kind of call this is going to be. I like to have my parents on that have worked with their kids. And in Mark's case, I think is Atticus, is he a sophomore or junior?
He's a junior now.
Junior this year. Yeah. So Mark's been a follower of mine for a while, and he's been doing the thing on his side of the computer in California, because he's East Bay, obviously, right? You still in East Bay?
Yes.
Yep. San Francisco kind of area. And
yeah, just outside of Oakland.
Just outside of Oakland. So he's been working with his son and doing the thing like many of you parents out there that are listening. And I always like to get the take of those parents that are getting their elbows dirty, their knees dirty, and are in their trenches. So there you go, Coach Mark Gonzalez. So first question I have for you is maybe we'll start with today, so it's more recency. What do you find to be the biggest mistake, one or two mistakes on hitting, like that you see out there?
Well, from a coaching perspective, in terms of a dad coach to a kid anywhere from 10 to 17 is overcoaching, and this is something that is just taking me years and years to figure out that I just need to get this little thing right here and zip it up. And sometimes, because the human body's smart, and kids are smart, and a lot of times they can figure it out for themselves. And so a lot of times there's just sort of a difference between what I say I want to happen and what I actually do. And so, for example, I've been telling my, junior, Atticus, my son, for years and years and years, that my goal is to become unnecessary. But then if I'm always overcoaching, always overcorrecting, well, there's a gap between what I'm saying and what I'm doing. So I think it's really important for dad coaches out there is, you can work with your son, give him basic instructions, but and this is something I got from you, Joe. It's let him take 5 or 6 or 7 swings and then ask questions. And a lot of times, you can say, what are you feeling? What do you think? Were you on time there? How did this feel? And a lot of times, they know. And, as my son is 16 years old now, he's, much more vocal, and, he can tell me, hey, Dad, let me figure this one out on my own. Yeah. Right? And I'm like, oh, yes. Okay. And so, and I think that's great, because that's the goal. That's not just the goal for coaching, it's the goal for being a dad, right? It's, you want to get your kids out there in society and become productive human beings of good character. And the only way that you can do that is a lot of times stepping aside and letting them sort of try to figure things out on their own.
I love that. And was there an aha moment at some point where you finally said, oh, you know what, I might be overdoing this, being the helicopter parent or coach or whatever?
Absolutely. And it was probably, Atticus might have been 10 or 11 years old. And the aha moment was whenever, I was too busy at work and I couldn't go to a game, Atticus would start hitting home runs. So then I said, maybe there's a correlation there between my involvement and his performance. So that was an aha moment that, you don't want to be the dad who, the kid's looking over for instruction. And that's a balance sometimes, because, you want to work with your sons, and you want to work, you want them to develop, a good hitting technique, good mentality, and all that stuff. But, there's a time to work with them. And then there's a time, the games, you should pretty much just shut up and let them play.
I love that. And I heard a similar story, probably not quite as nice a story, but one of my younger hitters was playing with another one. And I know the dad, and the dad's a good dude. I played with him at Fresno State, but maybe something's going on at home or whatnot. But and he's got 3 kids or whatever, and it's the oldest one that my hitter was playing with. And anytime, and dad was usually the coach. Dad was out there as kind of the head coach, assistant coach, or whatever. But the games that dad wasn't out there, he did well. He was well-mannered. And the days that his dad was out there, he was very combative, not just with dad, but just with the other team players. I guess there was at one point he was taking a throw from shortstop. They were trying to turn a double play. The runner slid into him, and then he punches the runner for sliding into him. And these are, I mean, talking 11, 12-year-old kids. And it was interesting to hear that there was one player, same player when dad was there, and one player when dad wasn't there. And again, I'm not making assumptions. I don't know what's going on in the house. I don't know any of that stuff, but all I know is that you got A and you got B. So that's a great thing that you kind of found that out when you're busy.
Yeah, like I'm like 99% of boys out there, they grow up and like they want to please their dads, right?
Yeah.
And which like that's a really good thing, but you need to sort of impart the wisdom to your kids that they really can't do anything for you to make them like love them anymore, right? So that's already there, right? And so if you're going to love them no matter what they do, that kind of takes the pressure off. That sometimes I think younger kids can sort of think what they do in sports or in school or whatever, it's that all of a sudden that sort of conditioned on the parents loving them, and it's not. And that's something like as a parent you really try to tell your kids every day on whatever they're doing that their performance is in no way indicative of like your love for them.
Right. Great point. I know is he driving now?
He's driving, yes. Boy,
it's a whole new world, isn't it?
It's a whole new world. And it has made it a lot easier where he gets to go to tournaments and I sleep in, right? So for your dads out there, like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? That getting up on those weekends and driving to wherever you drive, that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe you can still show up, but it's on your schedule, and maybe you see one game, or maybe you don't, or maybe you just show up one day and you don't. I think that kind of creates a much different father son dynamic.
Now, do you miss it though, or not yet? Are you still on vacation?
I'm still on vacation.
You're still enjoying it.
Yeah, and it's really nice because he has all his friends on the team, and so he's always recording his at bats, right? Because he's trying to do the college recruiting thing, so he's always filming at bats and putting them on the social media. But so it's been an interesting transition where we started out more with mechanics, and now we're transitioned more now to feel. And where now he asks me for hitting advice more on what should my approach be here. And that's I, like years and years ago, I'm 55 years old, but I played a few years of college baseball back in the 1980s. So like I have an understanding of approach and feel and what you should be looking for, and all of those things that I think are the inner workings of hitting that are very helpful. That a lot of times people focus too much on the mechanics of hitting, and you can have average mechanics, and if you have a good approach, you can still be successful. I think a lot of times people overly focus on the mechanics. Now you want to have good mechanics, but when you're in the game facing like 88 with hard sliders, it's really not about mechanics. It's just it's about some mental toughness there.
Right. It's all about competing. I'll have to remember if I forget, tell me to send you. I have a video on that. So this year we really moved. Every year it seems like there's an aha moment, and it's either a mechanical thing or whatnot. And this year, a little bit of 2020, we started working what you're talking about, the hitting. We call them hitting strategies, and we have 6 of them, and it's from the point of controlling your verticals, right? Controlling your line or your fly ball, line drive, ground ball ratios, right? Controlling your line to line approach or your horizontals. So being able to pull the ball or go oppo, and your curveball approach. What if, like you mentioned, an 88 mile an hour fastball pitcher, we call it fast guy pattern. That fast guy pattern, the fast guy tends to have different patterns where he locates the ball, what pitches he throws, that kind of thing, versus a slow guy pattern. So we have a fast guy pattern, slow guy pattern. We have a 2-strike. We just started doing probably about 2-3 months ago. We started doing a 2-strike approach, and nothing to do with the physical side, not choking up, none of that, widening out your stride, none of that. It's all based on brain observation, seeing how the pitcher, what they do when they're ahead, what they do when they're behind, that kind of thing. I'll send that to you. What kind of things are you guys, when you talk about approach, what do you talk to Atticus about?
Well, it's just like a lot of patterns, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of patterns and situations, right? If you're the number 3 batter, he bats third. So if you're the number 3 batter and it's first and second and nobody out and you're coming up, you're probably not going to get a fastball, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. And then last season, Atticus really had a few really good games against this one team. And so we were driving back from practice one day, and I said, they're not going to throw you any fastballs next year. Hope you know that, right? And just to get an idea. And it's just little things about the pitches you're going to expect, right? And if you pay attention to the pitchers, like you're saying, humans are creatures of habits, and if you're paying attention, it's the same habits over and over again. And then there's also, of course, situational hitting. Everyone wants their hit to mash. I get that, right? But it's, hey, if you're in a tight ball game, right, and you need that run, you got to try to figure a way, to hit a ground ball to the right side. If that, if that's bringing the tying run in, and if you're not thinking about those things, if you're not practicing those things, I think so much in the baseball community, it's either or. It's like, well, you have to, be going yard every single swing, or
you're not
going to be an effective baseball player. And it's like, and I'm all for hitting the ball long and far in the right situation. Situational baseball. I think you look at the major leagues. I think they lost a little bit of the situational skills that they might have had 30, 40 years ago. But 30, 40 years ago, dudes weren't dotting 101 on the outside corner either. So that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, it's crazy. You remember, you've been with me for a while, and at one point, I think you were probably as far back when we were talking about that ground balls are horrible and no bunting and all that kind of stuff. You were that far back. And you probably noticed the change probably within the last 3-4 years, where we said, and it was really Perry Husband from hittingasaguest.com. We became pretty good friends, and it was him that really turned me around to, well, hey, in the big leagues, for every ground ball that's 95 miles an hour and above, the batting average is like 550. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. So we're saying bad to ground balls, but there are good ground balls. The one hoppers, maybe 2 hoppers that are getting through the infield. Those are good as well, so it's more, anytime I see a far one side approach. So like you said, the launch angle swing, they say where it's all dingers and doubles, and that's all you need to do, or all situational hitting. You got the coaches on the other side that go, oh, they hate the launch angle thing, and they would rather be 100% situational hitting, which is 15% of the game, or depending on the game. But it could be 2% of the game, it could be 30% of the game. But like you said, there has to be a middle ground where situational hitting is great, and you should be able to have barrel control to be able to do a hit and run, or like you said, hit a ball to the right side of the diamond, or hit a deep fly ball to the outfield to score a run from third base, right? You should be able to do that kind of stuff. And I agree with you. I think Major Leagues has really gone away from that the last 5 years, if not the last decade.
Yeah, it's interesting. In youth baseball, I don't think I've seen kids play pepper like in 10 years, maybe even 15 years, where, when I grew up, that's all, you would do before a game. And that, in my estimation, that help with bat control. If you can't play pepper, then It's going to be hard to, hit a ball the other way when you really need to. I think also like another challenge for dads and youth out there is young kids don't watch as much baseball as you and I did
Hmm.
growing up. It's I coached a number of youth teams and recreational youth teams and even some travel, and you
Hmm.
would be surprised at like the lack of just baseball foundation that's out there because kids don't watch as much baseball as they used to. Like even my son, who really, really enjoys baseball, he doesn't watch that much baseball. Like he
Right.
enjoys playing baseball.
Hmm.
He has the MLB app, so he sees the like home runs, right? But he's not sitting there watching, 2 outs, and on like June 3rd.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big change that I think a lot of dads need to really take into account, that a lot of kids just don't have like the basic foundation of baseball because we're in a much different world right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even playing baseball video games, because we were outside, you and I, we had
Sure.
like both feet in each world, right? We were at the beginning of the tech world, the video game world, where it was Atari, then Nintendo, and then kind of went from there. But we played baseball stars and RBI baseball, and also watched baseball. And then the other thing that I was thinking when you were talking about that was wiffle ball. Like, when do kids play wiffle ball anymore? We did that with my 8-year-old, our son, who's in third grade. Sure. This last year, we didn't really like how our league took the whole COVID thing this last year. Sure. So we went independent. We went on our own. And this was like the transition year between machine pitch in our league and player pitch. So I really wanted to take that year and help that transition and help the kids, the hitters, especially, both the pitchers and the hitters, but the hitters, especially, with the fear of getting hit, by their own peer as they're throwing. So what we did big time this summer. So we practiced, did our thing. We were able to get some games in. We scrimmaged ourselves quite a bit just because other teams were playing in their leagues and they didn't have as much time and room for us to play. And we just got started in the travel thing. So I'm starting to build relationships with travel ball coaches and whatnot. So we pretty much scrimmaged each other more than anything. But in the summer, we decided to keep going like one day a week. And so what we would do is we would do a couple drill things, couple things like hit the heavy bag, because, a lot of them, they stop their bat at contact. And I have a thing called a V-Flex. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's like the ring that floats in the middle. It looks like a dream catcher, a big dream catcher, and it has a little ring in the middle. And so the thrower we go underhand and we just throw balls through that little circle, wiffle balls, golf wiffle ball sized balls. And they only swing if it goes through the ring. If it goes outside the ring, they don't swing. So, a little bit of strike zone awareness. And we would do at the end, we would do wiffle ball. We would play wiffle ball games. So we'd play either home run derby or we'd play an actual game where they play against each other and got to get each other out and stuff like that. But wiffle ball, what happened to that?
Well, the funny story is like I was always really good growing up, a really good opposite field hitter. And the reason why I was a really good opposite field hitter, because I was left-handed and right field was closed in our neighborhood. And so you just have to figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. On your own. But those MLB games right now, and this is sort of a point, is trying to enter your kid's life where they are. And my kid plays a lot of like MLB, like the show game or whatever it is. But you know what? It's so good now. If you're really paying attention, you can really get a lot of lessons there in terms of pitching sequences.
Yeah.
If you're paying attention, and as a dad, you can kind of like point out a little bit of things. You can get a lot of really good information from those video games, because it tries to follow normal pitch sequencing. So if you're going, low outside, soft, you can kind of come back up and in, and the batter's gonna have some problems.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. No, that's a great point. And I think that's how some of us learned the game just growing up, even though it wasn't quite as complex as, like you said, now what the games are. It's so lifelike now, and the sequencing so lifelike. Whereas back in the day, it was almost 2D. We're seeing 3D on these video games, right?
Yes.
So the 2D wasn't, but you're still learning the rules of the game. And we have we got Wii during COVID, so that keep them active and stuff like that in the house. And so they have that baseball game with the Wii, which they have the weird faces and, you know, the bodies that seem to be floating on top of their or the heads that big heads that float on top of the bodies. But you learn that what the rules are. You can't go back to the base, you know, at least in those video games. And you learn, you know, we got to get an out. We got to get ahead of the runner. You know, if they hit it in the gap, well, you're not going to get that player out at first. So you got to get it in either to second or to third to be able to get them off. You know, that was my thing in the outfield. We were always about cutting off that extra base. So if a guy hit it to the wall, you got to make sure you get to it and get it to your cutoff guy so that they can either throw it to third if they're fast and try and break for third, or, you know, we can get them at second or whatnot. No, I love that. It's a great point about the video games. I got a question. So you guys are in the recruiting side right now. So
yeah,
junior year, that's a great year to start the recruiting process. So for some of those dads out there that may be freshmen, they got freshmen, sophomores, what you mentioned that Atticus has been, putting his stuff out on social media, video, and things like that. So what things total have you guys been doing on the recruiting side?
well, one of the things I kind of try to use this as a sort of developmental process in terms of life, like life skills. So, you know, I started off by, you know, sitting Atticus down and trying to go over, okay, well, why don't you send some emails to coaches, you know, at universities that you think meet your skill set. And I was pretty laid back in terms of, so, you know, giving some basic points, but I wasn't writing his emails. And he sent some really horrible emails. but like that's how you're going to learn. And you know, one day you're going to be going out looking for a job, and you need the skill of how to communicate in writing to sort of potential employers. And recruiting is very much similar. You are writing to future college coaches, and you want to put your best self forward. You want to show yourself to be, you know, a smart person, a person of good character. You want to show your baseball abilities, and you want to show that you're interested in that particular college. And so now, you know, he writes really good emails, and, you know, he texts back and forth with particular coaches, and guess what? I'm not involved.
Yeah, I love it.
So, you know, that's really, and then, you know, we've kind of talked about, you know, he does a lot of stuff on Twitter in terms of, you know, posting at bats and highlights from games and like working out and stuff. And I'm not really involved in that either. You know, maybe a little bit sort of like from
sharing and stuff.
Foot view, like, hey, you know, what type of colleges you're looking at, you know, why, where, you know, what do you expect to get out of it? You know, does this school even have your major? Just to make sure he's approaching the college recruiting thing like the right way.
So what's he looking for? What schools and why? Like, I'd love to hear I love hearing the answers to those questions.
Well, yeah, he's changed, like, and I think it's fair that he's changed. Where, you know, when he was a freshman, it was like, I just want to go anywhere, you know, D1, right? You know, like they kind of started very sort of broad, and now he's sort of narrowing things. He's looking at, I think right now, California schools. He's looking at California schools, and so, but he knows that's, you know, that's going to be a challenge. And I've imparted the, you know, the wisdom that, you know, doesn't have to be D1. It's about fit. You go somewhere, and if it's a good fit for you, and, you know, the rule is, you want to go somewhere where people want you. Yeah, you know, like, who, in my opinion, you don't want to be the last guy to get on a D1 team. I think that makes it really, really tough. I'd rather be the first guy on a D3 recruiting board or D2 recruiting board. So, you know, we're looking across the board. We're looking at California. We have some out of California schools too that we're looking at. And so, you know, I've been open with my finances in terms of, you know, I've been open with all of my kids. This is how much we have budgeted for you for college. And so I've just gone through the process with a daughter. You know, she's now, you know, majoring in, you know, bioengineering at Cal Berkeley. So
cool.
You know, yeah, she did, you know, but she applied to a number of colleges, and we had to, you know, sit down and look at the math and, you know, see what would work, and talk about, you know, whether you're going to have, you know, Cal Berkeley, that's something within my budget. Some other schools that she had gotten into, like certain Ivy League schools she got into, but that would have been a loan. So I had to sit her down and say, okay, well, if you want to borrow this much money, let's see, how much are you going to make in 5 years? Here's what the loan payment is going to be. Here's what your rent payment's going to be. Here's what your car payment's going to be. And it was like, well, Cal Berkeley's looking pretty good, right?
I love it. Yeah, that's a great approach. I love that. And I don't know, maybe he's doing this in his emails. I don't know what his emails look like, but with my hitters, my local ones, the ones that are about that age, juniors, seniors, or I mean sophomores, hopefully not seniors. They're hopefully thinking about this a little bit earlier, but sophomores, juniors. One of the things I picked up from, it was a book on negotiation. It was something like Negotiate as if your life depended on it. And it was a FBI guy. His name will pop into my head here, but he was an FBI guy for like 30 years. And he was the one on the negotiation team for like child abduction that was outside of the United States. So it could be child abducted, an American family in Southeast Asia, could be Vietnam, something like that. Right. So he was called in to do the negotiating and stuff. So he had a son who was playing football in high school, and the same time came junior, and he had to do some recruiting. And one of the interesting things that he said, and it was like, oh, the light bulb went on with me, was when you send those emails out, letters out to those recruiting coaches, is to ask them, how do you evaluate your hitters? Or how do you evaluate, if you're a pitcher, how do you evaluate your pitchers? How do you recruit hitters? What is it that you're looking for? Because some recruiting coaches will say, well, we're looking for the launch angle swing, right? And then you'll have another coach that will say the opposite. We're not looking for a launch angle swing. So what I tell my hitters, that they want to be a little bit lazier and make one video that has a little bit of everything and send it out to all the coaches. But I told them, I said, if you do that and you send a launch angle, a piece of your big video is launch angle, they're going to go, oh, this is disgusting. I don't like this, So I tell them, just create videos of different things, of your ball exit speeds, of your games, of you maybe during BP spraying the ball around the infield or around the field, right? Showing that you can go oppo, you can pull the ball, you can go straightaway center, show that you can hit a double dinger, show that you can hit a 10-degree line drive, show that you can hit a one hop screamer, so you have all these little pieces. And then based on what the coaches are telling you, then you just piece together the right pieces that they're looking for and then send it out to them, so that, I don't know if
I think that's great advice. I'll probably give that to Atticus and, see what he wants to do with it. I just think that's really sort of kind of hits it on the nail on the head, that, you're trying to make yourself attractive to colleges, and everyone has a different sort of idea of what they're looking for. And that also helps the kid, because if it's, if this college wants a certain type of hitting approach, and if that's a hitting approach you really, really don't like, well, then maybe that's not the school for you.
Exactly.
And so then it's not a match. But I think today, with all of the technology, and I think that's something that I probably started using 2 to 3 years ago, where you have the little blast motion stuff. You can get a lot of data there, where, it really helps sort of a dad. Just, you can kind of see, hey, look where you were 6 months ago, and now look where you are now in terms of bat speed, or, attack angle, or all those things you're working on. That also helps sort of settle disputes in the cage, where, someone, oh, that's an absolute bomb. I'm like, are you sure? Let's see what the blast motion says on that one.
Or hit tracks. You guys have hit tracks up there. Yeah. Speak of a reality show video game to be able to go on. We would have had a hell of a fun time back in the day if we had hit tracks.
Yeah, that's. But yeah, I grew up the same way. Just, wiffle ball. Heck, when I was in college, we would play a double hitter, and then we would go back to the dorm and eat dinner, and then we would come out and play wiffle ball. It's
totally different now. They get on their headphones and they listen to their music, or they play video games instead. And not saying video games are bad, in moderation, I would think. But like you said, you can learn a lot from playing MLB The Show.
I think so.
So before, be respectful of your time, before I let you go, and I want to also let people, if they want to get contact with you and stuff, we'll go over that. But before we get there, any other parting thoughts that you would give to those parents out there with freshmen, sophomores, juniors in high school, coming from a dad who's coaching their own kid?
I think I would say, well, number one, it just depends on who you are, because it was sort of, having played baseball myself, I would say it was like a blessing and a curse. And it was like, because the blessing, I have a general understanding
Right.
of baseball, but the curse is I had a general understanding of baseball from 35 years ago. And so
right.
there was a lot of unlearning that I had to do. A lot of things, really, really developed over the years. So I had to just completely relearn things. And it was fun so I would say, for the dads, have an open mind and just go out there and look at all of the, leaders in the field. Now with Instagram and Twitter, you can follow some really, really excellent coaches out there who can, give you all the information you need that you can pass along to your sons. And I say, so don't assume baseball because you played baseball. I think that's a big mistake that I made early on. But as I sort of kind of developed myself, I was able to say, you know what, I just assume I don't know anything, and I'm entering this like someone with no baseball experience. And I think that's when I was really able to get a lot of information, really good information, that I was able to pass on to my son. And now my son, he just has so much information. I hear him sometimes coaching up other kids. Well, you need to, move this way, do that way. And so that's where I was like, okay, at least I've accomplished something. I passed on some really good information. And if he can understand that information enough where he could pass it on to other people, I think he's in the right place. And it makes it feel like, I've done a pretty good job of sort of passing on, my baseball knowledge, or even my new baseball knowledge, but old baseball knowledge as well to my son. And I think that's what it's all. That's what it's all about. And for dads out there who have no baseball background, I think that's perfectly fine. I think you can coach a team, have a good time.
They don't have to unlearn anything. They don't have to unlearn anything.
Yeah, my wife, she coached my daughter's CYO volleyball team one year, and she never even been on a volleyball court. And so she just got some books, and we happened to have, I don't know, there was like some Stanford volleyball player who lived in our neighborhood, so she talked to her, and she ended up taking the team to like the CYO finals, which was like, she was like the second out of 32 teams, because she knows how to run things. So
interesting.
If you know how to run things, well, then you can do really well running a baseball team, and then just outsource the baseball knowledge. Usually, when you go to rec ball or travel ball, it's like the one coach who's just doing everything. He's organizing, he's doing the baseball, and sometimes that can get kind of lost. A lot of times, for running a team, and it's rewarding. You can have a good time with running a team. I've coached a bunch of teams. I don't like running a team. And so whenever people would come to me and say, hey, or do you want to coach? And I was like, well, okay, as long as I'm not running anything. So then people would say, hey, when's the next practice? I don't know. I'm waiting for the email. And so I was able to do that for a number of years, which then made it really, really fun, where I just got to go to the field and coach the kids up. And I had a lot of fun with that. And I think I told you this story years and years ago. I had this young team I was coaching with my younger son. And so we just had fun with it. And we had this rule if anyone ever had a walk-off, because we live close to Oakland, that we would do the Oakland A's pie in the face, right? And so like it was a close game, and we were scratching and crawling, but like we weren't nervous. Everyone was just cheering pie because they wanted to get a pie in the face, right? And so we ended up winning, and
that's awesome.
Pie in the face. So be creative. You don't don't focus so much on the winning and losing. Focus on the experience, because I'm sure. Actually, I think my youngest son just the other day he mentioned that he's like, remember when we were going the pie in the face, right? And like that's what he
You
remembered.
remembered it.
Yeah, right. He remembered the pie in the face. He got no idea probably what happened in the game.
Right. I love that. That's such a great point. That's awesome. Hopefully some people can take some nuggets out of what you have to say, Mark, because I think you have a lot to say in our relationship that we've built over the years. So thank you again for following me and supporting me and all that. So where can people find you if they wanted to reach out? And if they had a question or something like that about anything in this talk?
I guess my Twitter handle is just East Bay Mark on. I think that would be the easiest. I'm on, Twitter, pretty much every day and night, just kind of seeing what's out there. And so if you DM me, I'll pass along whatever information I can. But there's a lot of wise baseball people out there on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm not one of them. So, but I can differ. I can point you to who they are, and I think that's the most important thing. And I would say to the dads out there, just be willing to see the long game. And what I mean by that is, like Atticus, he wasn't in every travel ball team. There were teams out there who, wanted to play every weekend, and that just wasn't the path that we were going to go. That was, I have 2 other kids, and our whole life doesn't revolve around baseball. And that's there's a draw that out there where you almost feel like, wow, if your son's not on every team playing every weekend, that he's getting behind. And guess what? It's just not true. That playing baseball every single weekend, as much as some teams do, like you're not getting behind. I'd rather have kids play other sports, especially when they're younger. I'd rather not play in a tournament than hit in the cage, because I think you can. Because I think one of the things with all of these games is somewhere the development is getting lost, because it's hard to get better in games. It's very counterintuitive, but I really believe that it's like that improvement comes when you're not playing the game for 2 or 3 months, and you can really sort of break things down, and all of a sudden, like, the results don't matter. Because you're working towards something. But if you're always playing games, you can never break something down. Like, you can never change an arm path, or hey, this swing just isn't working. Like, there was a period of time where Atticus had a leg kick for a while, and it just wasn't consistent. When he had it, it was great, but it just wasn't consistent. And so during a period of 2 or 3 months, we kind of changed it to a toe tap. But like, it took a while. Like, that's not something you can do. That's not something you can do on a weekend.
Right.
And if you're playing games all the time, then that's something that's not going to work. And I would also say, don't worry about kids develop at different sort of times. And so don't get caught up in sort of what's happening out on the field. As long as, you feel like your son's making the progress that he needs to be making, don't focus on the results so much. I remember this might have been when Atticus was like 11 or something, or 12. And, he played up on some team, and maybe he probably shouldn't have, but it just, like, that's just how it happened. I don't think he got a hit. Like, the whole season, right? That was like a long season. And we would drive back, like, from tournaments, and sometimes your son just needs to hear that he believes in you. And I remember saying, look, you're this close. Like, you are so close. You can't imagine how close you are. And I know you don't see it out there. I know you're frustrated right there, but you are so close. And then, like, the next summer, he just broke out. So he went from not getting a hit during an entire season to, like, hitting 500 the next season. And it's just, but so you need to take the step back and actually, as the dad, see the long game, see how he's improving. And I guess one final point is focus on, don't forget the strength and conditioning. That's so important. So many sort of families get caught up into having to play baseball every weekend, and then they get into high school, and they don't have the body
Mm.
they need to, compete on a varsity level baseball field. And having that body is really, really important. And I was telling Atticus just that the other day that there's something called body discrimination. Like if
Mm.
you are
Mhm.
really put together, guess what? Everyone's going to assume you can play. So
Yeah.
you get a little more latitude in terms of whether or not you're going to produce or not, because you just look like a baseball player.
Mhm.
Versus if you're underweight or whatever, they're going to assume you can't play something. And that's just a reality.
Mhm.
That people have their biases of what a baseball player looks like.
Mm.
So as a young kid, you don't have to go hard, lifting weights, especially when you're in middle school, but push-ups and pull-ups and
Mhm.
sprints and all those things, like they make you athletic. And then
Mhm.
when you're old enough to start lifting weights, it's a really easy transition. And there's a lot of great programs out there that can really help dads um, to guide their kids in terms of weight training that's really focused on baseball development and speed development. I would say that Atticus was never a fast runner. That just
Mhm.
wasn't his skill, and he's worked at it through strength and conditioning. And he went to a camp, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and he had a 7 flat 60, and for him that's fine.
Wow.
That's fine
Mhm.
for him. He's probably getting near his max, but that's what life's about, just sort of maximizing who you are.
Mhm.
Some kids can wake up out of bed and go run a 6'7", right, without
Yeah.
ever training. That's just who they are.
Yeah. Yep.
All you can do is try to make yourself like the best person you can with the abilities that God gave you.
Mhm. I love that. All great points, Mark. All right. So those out there want to contact Mark, go Twitter at East Bay Mark. You can just go there and, like you said, DM them if you got any questions and things like that. But hey, man, I appreciate you making the time during your busy lunch hour over there in the East Bay.
Okay.
So thanks, and we'll have to do maybe a part 2 at some point. Definitely want to keep abreast of Atticus and how he's doing, and he's got a year and he's got another year, and then the big things happen. So thanks again, Coach Mark, for jumping on today.
Okay. Take care.
All right, brother.